Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a sunny spring Dublin. I'll just give it a few seconds for a few more participants to come in. Now, good evening, everyone. My name is Elena Hearn, and I'm head of the admissions for the College of Business at UCD. And I would like to welcome you all, whether you are coming from Ireland or abroad. Lovely to see you this evening. And we had a very interesting evening planned for you. So I'm going to just kick off here with the first slide, which is the and that is where Professor Geraldine Doyle, who's the Associate Dean of the UCD College of Business, will do the introduction and the welcome. Then I will do an introduction on the why an MBA, and then we will have a panel discussion. And then we'll have an interview with one of our UCD MBA scholars. Okay, so I'd like to hand over and welcome Geraldine Doyle and ask her to do the opening. Hi, Geraldine.
Thanks so much, Elaine. And good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Professor Geraldine Doyle, Director of the UCD Smurf School and Associate Dean of the UCD College of Business. And it's a great pleasure to welcome you to our Women on the MBA webinar this evening, and to thank you for taking the time in your busy schedules to learn more about how an MBA degree can help you to achieve your goals. I'd like to thank our panelists, who is comprised of current and former students, for joining us to share their MBA journey and experience with you. So I'd like to begin by sharing a little bit about some of the gender equity initiatives here at the UCD Smurf School and opportunities for incoming students. So following conversations with many of our students, both current students and alumni, there appear to be three perceived barriers to deciding on whether to embark on an MBA degree or not. And first, there is a perception that women are already very busy managing their professional life and also many caring responsibilities. So we'll talk a little bit about how we have two types of MBA programs that specifically address this issue. Secondly, there is a concern about having the self-confidence in our ability to pursue an MBA degree. And again, we share some evidence with you on this. And there was always the question, can I afford the cost of an MBA degree? So this evening we shall address each of these perceived barriers. I'll talk a little bit about them. Elaine will expand further, and then you will hear directly from some current students and also some alumni who have been through the journey and have indeed come out the other side. So first, concerning busy lifestyles and having enough time to study, to juggle our professional careers, our caring responsibilities, and also time to study and really engage with our programme. So we have two programs, our midweek executive MBA program, which requires students to be on campus 2 evenings per week. And we also have a new modular executive MBA program, which we launched last year in 2021. And both of these are suited to persons with busy personal and professional lives, and indeed to those who are pursuing entrepreneurial activities as well. And secondly, regarding confidence in our ability to complete an MBA degree, all of the evidence highlights that women perform equally well, if not better, than their classmates, and have equally successful career outcomes on graduating with their MBA degree. So the evidence is there in terms of ability to complete an MBA degree. And then finally, on the perception of cost. We do have a range of financial supports and also scholarships which are available for all students. Some scholarships are specifically for women, for example, our 30% Club Scholarship, our Image Scholarship and the Journal.ie. Women can also apply to all of our other scholarships. So we have a wide range of scholarships, including, for example, our GMAT scholarship, sports scholarships, and Elaine will speak a little bit more about that later. And Leah is here, who's going to share her experience about applying for the scholarship that she has been awarded. Support and community are at the bedrock of the UCD Smurf at School MBA programme, which includes mentorship and outreach programmes with industry and corporate partners. Student initiatives are also critically important to our vibrant community here at the UCD Smurf at School, and we welcome all students to join existing initiatives or indeed to come up with your own initiatives, clubs and societies. So for example, we have an initiative which commenced last year entitled UCD Smurf at Women Inspiring More, and also GEMBA, which stands for Gender Equity on MBA. So we would welcome all of your ideas in terms of joining those initiatives, existing initiatives, or indeed initiating and creating your own. Our ultimate goal here at the UCD Smurf at School is indeed to enhance gender balance on our MBA programme to 40% of women in each class over the next 5 years, striving towards 50% thereafter. And we are dedicated to taking steps necessary to achieve gender parity and to have ambitious plans aligned with our overarching strategy. So it's an exciting time to be studying here at the UCD Smurf at School, and I hope to get to know you all before welcoming you to join our programme and be part of our incoming class. So now, before we begin our panel discussion with our current students and with alumni, I'm going to hand back to Elaine, Head of Admissions here at the UCD Smurf at School, to talk to you for about 5 minutes before we commence our panel discussion. So back over to you, Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. I just hope I can share my slides. I got into a bit of flap earlier on. I couldn't share my slides, so I'm now able to share them. So I suppose the big question is why undertake an MBA? And some of the stats that I'll show you a little bit later in the slide gives you really the statistics of our previous class, last year's class. So the MBA, it's a passport to broadening your career and your career advancement. It will give you opportunities that perhaps you hadn't thought were possible. Quite a number of our current executive MBAs will talk about the promotions that they've already got. It improves your leadership and development and your own personal development, your leadership opportunities. We pride ourselves on our leadership and development program on the MBA. Most importantly for women, it gives you an increase in your opportunity to increase your salary. And I show you that in the statistics. There was an increase of 132% for some of our full-time MBAs last year. And it was up for 77% on our 2020 EMBAs. Other people look at the opportunity to change careers, to maybe go from an operational role to a more strategic role. So we often meet candidates who are currently maybe doing roles like actually project managing projects, but they're looking to get into more of the strategic side of it. We also have a number of candidates who are in the healthcare sector, so they would be either doctors or nurses, and they're looking to get into the business of healthcare. So that's the reason why quite a number of people look at it. Also, people look at career pivots. So we have a number of candidates who are either nurses or teachers or in the army, and they have completed an MBA and they've completely pivoted into a different career, into either an entrepreneurial role or often with consultancy companies. The last reason really is it enhances your global experience. So certainly for candidates who maybe haven't had a global experience in their current roles, it gives you a great opportunity to do that. The last one that I would actually add there is also the networking opportunity. It gives you a fantastic networking opportunity. And a lot of people often say to me that one thing that surprises them is what their learnings from their peers in an MBA, and that really does surprise them. So why Smurf at MBA? Well, we're Triple Crown accredited, so we are among the top 100 business schools globally who are Triple Crown accredited. As I said, we have an excellent leadership and development program. We also have academic excellence. So the academics who teach on our MBA are also researchers, and quite a number of our academics are involved in very extensive areas of research, both with corporates and within other partnership universities globally. And then we also provide quite an experiential learning experience around that whole leadership and development program, around projects, capstone. So there is that whole learnings around those areas also. As Geraldine outlined earlier on, we have three options. So we have the full-time MBA, the executive MBA, which is the midweek MBA, and then we also have the modular. So the executive and the modular are both part-time options, and the full-time is a one-year program. The other two are both two-year programs. So we offer you three options, really. So across those, you need a minimum for the full-time MBA of 3 years experience. And on the executive and the modular, we really would recommend about 5 years experience. So you can see these options on our website. As I said to you, these are the reasons why people look at the MBA. You can see our latest career statistics. So 90% of the full-time class of 2021 were employed within 3 months of graduating. They saw an average increase of 132% on their salaries, and 66% of them had a change in sector. So as I said, this is a huge reason to look at an MBA. 83% of them remained in Ireland, because we do have quite an international cohort who do the MBA. On our executive, equally, we had 92% promoted within 1 year of graduating, which is fantastic. And 49% of them on average saw an increase in salary. So you can see 31% of them changed sectors. So again, there is that a challenge to change sectors. These are the sort of recent employers. So we have very close links with our partnerships. We have a dedicated careers manager who works with you, a dedicated careers MBA manager who works with you right through on your career, and also on your career opportunities, and where do you see you would like to go, what sort of industries. So we have a history there. So I'll stop sharing now, and I'll invite Geraldine to start the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Elena. We're going to hand over to Stephen first. Stephen, you're going to tell us a little bit about the module that you teach within our MBA program. So over to you, Stephen.
Thanks, Geraldine. Good evening, everyone. So I teach a couple of modules on the MBA, and a module in decision-making, executive decision-making. But this evening, I want to talk to you about negotiation. This is my core topic. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. Prior to starting lecturing on the MBA program, and indeed embarking on a career of delivering training and consulting in this area as well, and working with other parts of the Smurf Business School, I worked in change management and management consulting, and found that negotiation was a very important, in fact, an invaluable tool for effecting change. And I became very interested in the practical application of negotiation theory, and that's what I try to deliver in my MBA program: practical tools for everyone to use to improve their negotiation skills. And the core purpose of the module on the MBA is to help everyone who takes it to become a better negotiator. Now, this evening, I want to talk to you about a very specific aspect of negotiation, which seemed very pertinent to this session, which is about gender and negotiation. And there are three key questions I want to explore that have been well researched. Do women negotiate differently to men? Do women get different negotiation outcomes? And indeed, in negotiations, are women treated differently to men? Now, I'm about to share with you some findings in this research. Some of it's a little bit disturbing. And I would stress that the research, this kind of research, is always based on averages. It's based on large numbers. So you might identify with some of the research findings, but equally, you might say that, well, that wouldn't be me at all. And indeed, I hope that that's the case for at least some of the findings, because some of the findings are worrying. For starters, there are differences in negotiation behaviors. Researchers have found that women are much less likely than men to initiate a negotiation, that rather women are inclined to wait and be invited to negotiate, or to have at least an explicit situation in which it's made clear that this is something that you can negotiate. And unfortunately, this is particularly the case where the negotiation involves some personal economic gains or benefits, such as compensation advancement, so salary or other perhaps non-monetary aspects associated with performance in the career. And this is particularly the case if there is situational ambiguity. In other words, if it's not clear either how much can be negotiated or indeed whether there is scope for negotiation at all. In such situations, men are even more likely to negotiate than women. When women do negotiate in these areas, they tend to set lower targets, less ambitious targets, and to ask for less. Now, I know that a couple of our panelists this evening, we have panelists this evening who've taken my module in the past or are currently taking it, and they will say, both through what they've learned in the course and through their experience, that being ambitious is absolutely a key to better negotiation performance. And the net result of this is that in salary negotiations, women are less likely than men to negotiate for a higher salary. Now, fortunately, as you've already heard from Elaine and from Geraldine, our MBA students are performing well, and that women MBA students are performing just as well as men. But I want to share with you now some of the research findings on more generally differences in negotiation outcomes for women and men, because this is the differences in behaviors. So what happens in terms of the outcomes? Unfortunately, the net effect is that women achieve worse negotiated economic outcomes than men, particularly in salary and career promotion scenarios. Now, I don't know how this is sitting with our audience this evening, but I find in a face-to-face situation, I usually see quite a lot of people nodding, or even kind of saying, yeah, I knew it. And of course, you knew it because you know about the gender pay gap. OECD studies show that there is a substantial gap between the gross average hourly pay for men and for women, and we call this the gender pay gap. The pay gap in Ireland is substantial. It's not as bad as in the rest of the EU, but there's definitely room for improvement. I want to say a little bit more about the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is not so much about whether women and men are paid equally for the same work. That could be part of the gender pay gap, but more generally, the gender pay gap indicates whether women are equally represented. In other words, if in a company, women are paid on average less than men, it could be because they are paid less for the same work, or it could be because they're they are in lower paid positions. In fact, the gender pay gap's a little bit complicated. There are a number of underlying causes: overrepresentation of women in part-time roles, discrimination and bias, distribution of family care and domestic responsibilities, and indeed gendered segregation in job types, leading to underrepresentation in higher paid roles. Now, here in Ireland, there is legislation afoot to require companies with, I think it's more than 250 employees, to report on gender-related pay in order to try to reduce the gap. But there's good news for everyone here, that there's also plenty that women can do as negotiators. And to see what women can do as negotiators to narrow the gap for themselves, it's helpful to understand a little bit more about the gender differences in negotiation that I highlighted, to try and understand some of the reasons for those differences in negotiation behavior. Because I want to stress that the differences that I've referred to are differences that are the result of barriers rather than the result of skill in negotiation. And there are several barriers that hold women back from better negotiated economic outcomes. Firstly, women are less likely than men to feel that a situation is negotiable, and that in part is because of signaling that is given to women and men differently. Women think that they will be allocated what they deserve, perhaps also because of signals that they receive. They don't establish ambitious targets, and they're more concerned in particular about damaging the relationship. And I know from lectures where I get to discuss this topic with women that a lot of women identify with that particular point, the concern about the relationship. And as I say, it's important to recognize that these differences reflect barriers, not skill. Okay, so to understand, to dig a little bit deeper, this point about concern regarding damaging the relationship relates to a concept called social backlash. And social backlash is basically a negative reaction directed at negotiators, specifically a negative reaction suggesting that the relationship is damaged. And women are more concerned about relationships on average than men in negotiation situations. Also, women receive more social backlash than men. The reason being that when women negotiate, for example, if a woman does initiate a negotiation, or if she sets a relatively optimistic or ambitious target, or if she makes counteroffers or persists, all of this is seen as violating gender norms, engaging in counter-stereotypical behaviors. If you are thinking at this stage, well, I really knew it. Unfortunately, I'd like to be able to say that sisters are standing up for themselves or for each other, but they're not really, because the researchers have found that both women and men inflict more social backlash on women than on men. So women are equally responsible for doing this. And the reason is that it seems that all of us, both women and men, have these deeply ingrained stereotypes, these gender norms and expectations. Hence, women managers in negotiating with their subordinates over salary do the same things as men. The result is that women who do ask for more are viewed more negatively than men. And the pattern that arises is that this affects women's expectation and behaviors. So this explains a great deal of the negotiation behaviors that we identified, such as asking for less or not initiating negotiation, or indeed not negotiating at all. Indeed, one of the authors cited here, Linda Babcock, wrote a book about this, and she simply called it Women Don't Ask, because time and again, this was a finding that arose in research. Okay, so that's all the bad news, and hopefully that's all the bad news you'll get this evening. It's not all bad news, because there are gender comparative studies that show that while men do economically better than women on average, that the averages don't apply to everyone. And when the researchers look into the detail and they look at women who actually perform as well as or better than men, and there are plenty of those, they find that there are various patterns that they can see, that gender differences are reduced among women who have more negotiation experience or confidence. One of the aims of the module I deliver is to give people both experience and confidence, or to enhance that experience and confidence. Secondly, the differences are reduced when women are given information about the possible range for negotiation. One of the things that I stress in my module and provide a framework for is how to be well prepared for negotiations. So you don't have to be given this information. You know exactly how to get it for yourself. And a very interesting and important finding is that the differences are reduced when women enter such negotiations, like pay negotiations, feeling accountable to others, in particular, accountable to others who matter a lot to them. For example, family would be a typical example. So there are ways to achieve better outcomes. First and foremost, if hearing about these stereotypes, the gender stereotype that leads to lower outcomes, if this annoys you, one of the things you can and should do is to actually surface and mentally attack the stereotype. In other words, say, well, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to do that. That's a proven strategy that works. Additionally, research shows that when women identify, when they name what they feel are gender-based relationship building skills, which women typically on average also are better at, like building rapport, listening to the other party, strengthening the relationship, That resets the balance in negotiations, identifying those skills and consciously activating them in negotiations. The accountability element means that effectively you would frame the negotiation in your mind as that you're negotiating not just for yourself, but on behalf of others, such as family members, making yourself accountable for the outcomes. Do your homework, do that preparation I referred to, understanding what should be the target ranges for salaries, for pay increases, when and how should you get a promotion, and so on. And be ambitious. If there's only a single lesson I could share with anyone about negotiation, it's to be ambitious. Now, this evening, we've just scratched the surface. There is a lot more that can be learned. And in my winning negotiation module, winning negotiation strategies module on the MBA program, we explore how to prepare and implement best practice strategies, how to identify your personal strengths and identify the mistakes you've been making by reflecting. And that reflection expands your personal development and self-knowledge and makes you a better negotiator, building your confidence to negotiate through practice and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was really interesting, very relevant and interesting mini lecture for our attendees this evening. And I'm sure many of the themes and the findings that you shared with us resonate with many people attending and joining us this evening. I might ask you one question. I might just invite attendees if they would like to pose any questions to Stephen while we're here. And Stephen, do you mind if I just kick off and ask you a question?
I'd be very happy.
Oh, fantastic. So just in terms of the move that we now see and the legislation requiring organizations greater than 250 employees to report on their gender pay gap, we've seen fantastic examples of Untitled, for example, and also Bank of Ireland. So we're seeing that kind of accountability being driven by the metrics and being driven by the data, understanding, what is the pay gap in these organizations in the first instance, and then taking actions within the organization to bring the pay to parity. So I suppose one thing a question that raised itself as you were speaking about it was, well, what of those organizations that do not fall within that requirement at the moment, those that have less than 250 employees? How do you think they might become accountable, or that maybe this trend in terms of reporting on the payback might evolve over time?
I think it's a problem, Geraldine. I think that there are a couple of aspects to the problem. One is that it's sad that legislation is required for this to happen. Okay. It is nice that some organizations have now begun to initiate this ahead of the legislative requirement. One notable example I'm always impressed by is Salesforce. Several years ago at the World Economic Forum, Mark Benioff of Salesforce said it just wasn't good enough, and his company was going to invest whatever it took to equalize pay, regardless, and was going to be very transparent about it. But I think that leadership is needed, because we shouldn't be, we need a change of climate. We shouldn't just be forcing companies to do this. And unfortunately, it's only about a month since International Women's Day and the events that surround that. And I have to say, I always feel a bit jaded when I see organizations that wave the banner in the same way that many organizations wave a green flag for the environment. And I see these organizations, I see many organizations that talk about equality and so on, and diversity. And yet I know I meet women who come to me and say, hey, look, I'm in a problem. I've got a problem here. I'm being promoted, and they're not going to pay me what they paid my previous boss, who was a man. So there's a mindset problem that I don't think is going to be easy to shift. I'd love to say I've got the answer to this. I don't. But I do think part of the answer is that women should absolutely push harder and make noise about it, and do challenge that stereotype and stand up and negotiate.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your inspirational words, and also, supported by the research that you presented. And as you say, it requires disruption, doesn't it? And a disruptive mindset on behalf of leaders to actually make this happen. So Stephen, a huge thank you to you for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. And we really appreciate your time and your expertise. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So now we're going to begin our panel discussion with some of our current MBA students and also some alumni. So I'm going to invite our panel members to turn on their cameras. Emer, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Keelan, Swagata, and Helen, you're so welcome. So I might introduce all of you, and also to invite our attendees to post any questions you might have for our current and former students onto the Q&A function on Zoom. So I'll introduce you first of all, Emer. So Emer is a current student, and she's here studying our new modular executive MBA program. Emer is a brand acceleration director at Waterwipes, and Emer is also a new mum of an adorable baby girl. So thank you so much for joining us in your really hectic schedule, Emer. So you're very welcome. We also have Swagata Sharma. Swagata is also a current MBA student, and Swagata is studying our full-time MBA program. And Swagata has been a scientist and studied science at the earlier part of her career, and she will share with us shortly as to why she chose to pursue an MBA degree. We also have one of our former students, Helen Calve. So thank you so much for joining us, Helen. And Helen also studied our executive MBA program, is a graduate of the class of 2006, and Helen started life as a radiographer, so also in the science and healthcare earlier, and from studying and working as a radiographer, Helen then moved into the business of radiography and is now the National Business Manager Ireland at Siemens Healthineers. So we look forward to hearing your story and your journey as well, Helen, so thank you. And then Keelan, really lovely to have you as another alum, a more recent alum. Keelan studied our full-time MBA program and was graduating with the class of 2020. Keelan studied law and business in her undergraduate degree and then worked in the banking sector as an innovation consultant, and is currently working in strategy and acquisitions at Amazon Web Services. So a lovely range of current students, both on our executive and our full-time MBA, and also alumni who have studied on the full-time and executive MBA. So you're all really welcome, and thank you so much for joining us this evening, ladies. So we might begin, and Emer, I might begin with you maybe to kick off our discussion. So can you share with us when and why the MBA became something that you considered?
Yeah, absolutely. So my experience, currently a brand acceleration director, my experience is very much in the demand side of business, so marketing and sales. And I suppose over time, what I found was I was moving into bigger roles, managing bigger teams, and leading bigger projects, and essentially spending more time in the boardroom. So influencing, negotiating, and securing budget. And I found that I lacked that language that really got things across the line. You know, I was coming up against functional experts, as you do, but I really found that not having that real kind of knowledge across all the functions and that real understanding was holding me back. So the reason I wanted to do the MBA was really to build my own credibility in that space, in the boardroom, and also build my own confidence. So I very much saw it as an investment in myself, in terms of my own personal development and where it would bring me in my career. There's never a good time. I have, like you said, a newborn. I also have a toddler. So whenever I was deciding to do it, I thought this is probably a terrible time. I have a 1-year-old, and very soon after that found out I was pregnant when I was in the application process. But yeah, I think the reason, you know, that I decided to do it now was very much because I have the energy to do it now, and I have the ambition to do it now. And I did feel that I was being held back, and I just wanted to take that next step. So yeah, that was me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Emer. And absolutely, you have addressed the concern that many people have in terms of being already so busy. So we commend you on that, that's for sure. And also you're highlighting it is possible. So you've embarked on that journey, and you are coping. So Helen, I might turn to you in terms of, what Emer talked about, the business, the language of business. And I suppose coming to the MBA as a scientist and as a radiographer, the language of business also would have been something new to you, and you would have embraced on our MBA program. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure, Geraldine. So I suppose it evolved. Many of us in the healthcare setting, and it happens today and will continue. As you progress through your career, and mine, as I said, was radiography, you then would manage a sub area. So in that area, you are given tasks such as budget forecasting, managing staff. So I think the whole area of business does come about healthcare business, because now more and more they're looking at cost centers such as radiology or imaging, and you really have to manage budgets. So I think the transition then into the MBA was really, really helpful. And I really appreciated that I could then bring that language back to the department, write business cases, get things across the line, and it really helped to better the department and get better facilities and access and scanners for the department. So it really blended very well.
Fantastic, Helen. And Keelan, you came to the MBA with a law and business degree, already. So that wasn't something, that you were lacking in terms of the language of business. So can you share with us, why you considered to do an MBA degree?
Yeah, of course. I suppose I always kind of wanted to do postgraduate education. I had considered doing an MSc degree or else going on and doing the MBA. And I just thought, having come from kind of university, it would be good to get a few years experience under my belt first, and have that situational experience to relate back to. I found it was really beneficial while doing the MBA to be able to kind of study a module, but think about how that worked in practice in a previous role, and how you might kind of change and do better in the future based on that new knowledge that you have learned. So I suppose that was kind of my main reason of why I wanted to do that MBA, was over and above an MSc, was just getting that kind of next step and building on my experience that I already had.
Fantastic, Keelan. And Swagata, you came to the MBA also from very different background, initially as a scientist, and a medic, and also then moving into the education sector. So can you share with us your motivation?
See that for me, there are two things personally. One was like, I felt like I reached a position in my career where I was not moving to the next level. So to gain that business perspective is something that I was really looking for, and that's what something which motivated me to do an MBA. And other thing was that I got married and I transitioned to Ireland. So I was trying to move to a different country, and I thought like doing an MBA would be the transition, would help me to make that transition to this new country. So that actually helped me a lot, I would say, to build that network around me, to know people in this industry, and build a strong network is something that I was really looking for, and MBA has definitely helped me in that.
That's fantastic, Swagata. And of course, here at the UCD Smurf School, we are very connected with the corporate world, our corporate partners, and they very much give back. And many of our alumni give back as mentors on the MBA program. So staying with you, Swagata, why did you choose the UCD Smurf School? Why?
Yeah, so actually, when I was looking for an MBA college, I was focused on two things. One is the strong academic curriculum, and also secondly a very strong alumni network, because I didn't know anyone in this country. So Smurf, specifically stood out in that factor that it has a very strong alumni community, which helps you in different points of your in your questions. They are very open and very helpful in many ways. So I think that was something which struck me while I was applying for colleges. And those two are my main reasons for Smurfit.
And we have many students, who do that. They move country and embark on the MBA program. So lots of life changes simultaneously. So Emer, back to you. Why did you choose the UCD Smurfit School MBA as opposed to any other MBA program?
I did my master's in UCD, and I actually have my undergraduate degree in UCD as well. And I've been to a number of colleges since, and I knew that the Smurfit was the only place that I wanted to do it. I knew that I'd had such a great experience there with the different lecturers, with the quality, the standard of your classmates. I knew that if I went to Smurfit, that's the quality I'd probably get over and above anywhere else. Is really obviously alongside the curriculum. It's who's teaching you it and who are you sitting next to. Like, that was what really drove it for me. And it doesn't hurt that the campus is gorgeous and it's a nice place to be as well.
That's for sure. And it was looking beautiful, certainly last week when we had the gorgeous weather, and earlier today when we had lovely blue skies and sunshine. So absolutely, yeah. And we have such a history of education as well here at the Carysford campus, previously being a teacher training college going back to the 1800s. So so thanks so much, Emer. And Helen, why was it for you? You were coming all the way from Galway, and I think originally you hailed from Achill Island, if I remember correctly. So you came all the way over to Dublin and to the Smurfit School. So why did you choose us?
Yeah, I think when you embark on an MBA, it is a big commitment. So I always thought, why not join a school that is the best, and you're giving yourself the best chance, because when you go to study anything, and I had been an alumni of UCD anyway, but I just felt if I was going to put in the effort, Geraldine, why not get the best result from the best school possible? And I think people do want to commit to that, that it's an easier decision if you decide to do it. Why not, if you're accepted into the best school, to do it there? And I had family in UCD, near UCD, so I think that's really helpful. I think if you're going to do any master, certainly an MBA, family support network is really important, especially if like some of the panelists here, they've young children, more and more, and throughout your life people will encourage you to do things. So I got great encouragement from my family and my support network. So it was just a very easy decision to make, was to go to Smurfit. And it's very prestigious, I think and certainly since I've done that, people do work on the fact, especially in healthcare, it's very rare, and in radiography, that you would have an MBA. So I'm very proud to say it's from Smurfit.
Fantastic. Thank you, Helen. And I've spent some time in Boston in Harvard Business School, and certainly, my time over there was, everybody I met who was a medic was an MD, MBA. So they had the dual degrees, and it was very much the norm there. So it was wonderful to see that we have so many, medics and people working in the pharmaceutical sector and medtech on our program. So Keelan, over to you. You've studied elsewhere as well. You didn't always study in UCD, and why was it for you that you chose the Smurfit School MBA?
Yeah, I suppose just reiterating what Helen said, just such a prestigious school. I kind of decided I wanted to grow my career within Ireland. And then I suppose Smurfit was the obvious choice based on the great reputation that the school has, and all the accreditations that the school has in the MBA program in particular.
Thanks so much, Keelan. And yeah, you probably know, and I'm not sure if our attendees have joined us this evening, our first MBA program was actually our executive MBA program that commenced back in 1964. And it was one of our esteemed professors, Professor Michael McCormack, who visited the US and had the experience of other universities in the US where the MBA degree was being offered, and brought it back to UCD. So we have Professor Michael McCormack to thank for that, after whom our esteemed Professor of Accounting, Professor Neil Brennan, is named. So, and it was then when we moved to the UCD Smurfit School campus, Emer, that we actually launched our full-time MBA program. And so this year, actually, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of our full-time MBA program. So it's a really important year. So, so next year it will be the graduating class. So the class of 2023 will be the 30th class graduating with their full-time MBA. So Keelan, I might stay with you then in terms of when you were starting the MBA, what was your greatest concern?
I suppose it was probably the risk in, leaving my job and going back to full-time education. Like, it was a big decision at the time. And it's a big investment in terms of the time involved, but also financially, to give up earning a salary for a year. But I just thought I was kind of at a crossroads in my career, and I thought it was a good opportunity to make that investment in myself. And yeah, I just think it was a great decision. It's opened a lot of doors for me and helped me to pivot my career in a new direction.
Fantastic, Helen. And you talk about that investment, not only in terms of time, and energy, but also investing in yourself. So yes, it does have a cost, and we'll talk about that later, and we'll hear from Leah in terms of one of our awardees of our scholarship program. But yeah, it is about investing in yourself, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And a huge risk, I suppose, also in terms of, giving up that security of, the monthly salary to study full time. And I suppose that's why we also have the option of our executive MBA program, because not everybody, is in that position to do that. So the midweek executive MBA program and the modular program really do enable you to do that. So Swagata, apart from moving country and coming to Ireland, what was your greatest concern on beginning the MBA program?
I think what Keeling mentioned is leaving your full-time job was one of the main concern, and because you have the habit of earning money every month, and suddenly it just disappears. So that was a big concern for me. But I think that risk has paid off. I think it's I can already see the change in myself, not just as a professional but as a person, how I have grown throughout through this MBA journey. I think that's been a valuable lesson for me, and it has been a very it's kind of a self-discovering journey where you have been challenged in small ways, but it kind of makes a big impact at the end of it. So yeah, that's yeah. So for the rest, I think of course, moving the country and also leaving the job, that was a big, the big moment for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Swagata. And Emer, you were applying for the MBA program, already having a toddler and expecting your next little darling who's now arrived. So what was your greatest concern?
Exactly that, Geraldine. I think my concern was, is this feasible? Am I putting too much on myself? Is this doable? And just that I'd struggle and that I'd get halfway through and say, well, I did that at the wrong time, or should I have undertaken that now? It's funny, I remember my first week whenever we started classes, and I was meeting my classmates, and I met a guy, really nice guy, but he's in my class, and he said he was due a baby that month. So we were talking about that, and I said, well, did it make you reconsider doing it? And he just looked at me blankly, like he was due a baby that week, and he had never thought, God, maybe because I'm getting another addition into the household, I shouldn't do this. And I think that just definitely made me more determined to make it work and to find the ways to make it work. Because it shouldn't hold me back. It shouldn't hold women back. I think that just made me more stubborn, if anything, to really make it work for me.
More determined. That's fantastic. Yeah. And even more ambitious, as Stephen was talking about earlier. We can be motivated in different ways to be more ambitious.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Helen, for you, can you remember what was your greatest concern when you were embarking on the MBA program?
Yeah, sure. Well, I had just accepted a new job in the Galway clinic, and that was the first private hospital to open in 20 years. And I remember going to site with a hard hat, and I was the only radiographer in the department, plus doing an executive MBA, which was at the weekend. So it was a lot to juggle. I do recall that. And then, journeying up from Galway for the weekend, and anyone that's in healthcare knows there's quite a lot of call as well. So we do work a lot of weekends, and that for me was my primary concern. But I've great, admiration for Emer, because since then I've had 3 children myself. I look back and think, wow, hadn't I oodles of time? But it's funny how everything is relative to the person at the time. So I do think that was a big step to go into an MBA course. And again, as you expressed in the first kind of question, it was a complete different language to me, a complete different atmosphere than healthcare. But I think we have to support others in healthcare because it's very much become a business now. And what I see, even in my role now in Siemens, I assist and I consult different departments on how to write their business cases, because often they lack that expertise, because essentially they're clinical people that are very competent clinically, but it's just expected then through promotions that they have a managerial aspect to them, and often it doesn't sit well. So I think we could do better there with that. But that's what I found most daunting, was how was I going to get from Galway to Dublin and manage all I had taken on with the Galway clinic as well.
Fantastic. And I do remember you starting in the Galway clinic, and you know, it was state of the art, you know, high tech, and as you say, first private hospital that had been opened in such a long time, I suppose, after the Blackrock Clinic. So it's a different landscape now, for sure. And, you know, and thinking about the beginning, you know, and moving on, Helen, then to, you know, your experience and your journey on the MBA program, what was the highlight for you?
Do you know, I really loved learning more about myself. I think it's something we don't do. I really learned on the MBA, you know, we do all our profiling, what type of person I am, who I like to work with, what type of people, you know, where my blind spots are. I really enjoyed that. I even learned, you know, that I was a reflective learner. I like to read, and then just kind of get the facts together. And I think it's really helped me in my professional life to know I like to have a lot of time to plan and do something, but equally, I now know how to work quickly and efficiently if someone drops something on my desk at 4 o'clock and expects it back by 5. So I think that was a really big learning curve as well. One thing that stood out to me, and again, going back to the Galway Clinic, there was a lot of pressure on us that were there in the beginning to make that a profitable hospital. And it was taboo back at the time to talk about the business of healthcare and having to realise a profit. But Galway Clinic did turn a profit within 3 years, and imaging was core to that, because 70% of patients across the threshold require imaging. So it's a very important department. So the MBA really honed all those skills and gave me the confidence to do that. So the highlight was, I guess, I was just a finished product, and I was very eager to introduce that to where I worked. So that's what I often see as the highlight. Had I not done the MBA, would I have been as successful in that job and gone on to do the other jobs that I've done?
That's really interesting, Helen. And I suppose what you brought out is, you know, alongside the academic excellence on the program, you know, in respect of which, you know, our accreditation have been so important over the last 20 years, but also our learning and development program, and the learning and development program being such an integral part. You know, it's not co-curricular, it is part of the curriculum, and, you know, and everybody really engages in that. And I suppose when you really engage in that learning and development program, you get so much out of it, as you have just shared with us and described.
Yeah.
And
as well, Georgie, if I could just say, the teamwork is so important. You know, I guess I was very young starting on that course, but there was a whole host of range of ages and professions, and it was a real good mix of people. But at the time, we'd only just started to talk about emotional intelligence. You know, that was a very new topic at the time, whereas now I find emotional intelligence front and foremost in many conversations in the business world today. It is about people's emotional intelligence, and I think I really learned early from the MBA what that was and why it was so important.
That's so true, even though we didn't have the label emotional intelligence
Yes.
at the time. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And Keelan, for you, what was the highlight of your MBA experience?
Yeah, I think it must have been my class. We had a great network of people, such a diverse group from a lot of different countries, and particularly different career experience. So I think in my class we had some doctors, pharmacists, engineers, people like a trader from London, and you know, it was so interesting to learn how different people approached problems differently. In group work, as Helen mentioned again, you might have somebody who would sit back and, you know, assess all of the data first before making a comment on it, and then you'd have other people who would jump straight in. And it was just really interesting to see how different people approach kind of group work. And then it really helped me then going forward in my career to understand that there are very different personalities in the room in a discussion. It's important to kind of respect everybody's opinion, respect everybody's different way of working, and I think that the diverse nature of the class really helped with that.
And that's so important. I mean, in terms of diversity, in every, global organization now, we have, diversity in terms of cultural diversity, ethnic diversity, diversity of thought also, when you talk about, respecting other people's opinions and being open to those. And I suppose that diversity of thought is really important, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Swagata, turning to you in terms of a current student, you are studying with us since last August. So what has been your highlight so far?
Well, I think it's a combination of what Helen and Keelan mentioned so far. So I think for me, the highlight has been the personal development that I can see in myself. So, I think, as a coming from a researcher background, we are more comfortable with, sitting by ourselves and doing our own personal work. So coming to MBA, it kind of initially pushed me towards, to collaborate more, to work with people from very different background from myself, and kind of try to understand how they see a problem, and what is their perspective on problems. And I think that helped me quite a bit in being myself prepared for the next level of my career. So that's something I see myself as a different person now because of those challenges during the initial days of MBA. Now I'm much more comfortable with working with people from very different background, very different, not just cultural, but also from work-wise, like people, some are from marketing, some are from sales, some are from media industry, and you get to work together on a specific project. You can learn so much from each and every collaboration with them. So that has been my highlight so far.
That's fantastic, Swagata. And, a collaborative mindset is so important, isn't it? In whatever organization we're working in, whatever team, we're working in different teams on different projects, maybe simultaneously indeed, having that collaborative mindset is so important to be set up for success, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Swagata. And Emer, what's been your highlight so far? Again, even though you're only with us since last August.
The fact that there are highlights just shows, I think, at this stage, how worthy and worthwhile it is to do. Personally, I think it's been the incremental small wins. So the successes I've had along the way in terms of like improving my own understanding of something that I never really was able to wrap my head around, and suddenly understanding it. And I have a strong female CEO in my company, which is fantastic. And I was confident enough to reach out to her directly on a number of items I worked on, reports as part of the modules, and just share with her some of my learnings and my thoughts, and particularly around how things operated in our own business. And that opened up a dialogue between myself and herself, which I never would have had before. Obviously, I could have reached out to her at any point, but I never felt I had anything to really contribute in the areas of HR or in the areas of supply chain, for example. And now I can see things, and I'm stepping back and I'm using my own business, I suppose, as the topic and as the company to cover in a lot of my work. And it's making sure that I'm bringing real value back to my company, which they're obviously thrilled to see. And it's further enabling them to support me and to be really confident in supporting me doing it, because they're seeing the value they're getting back from it already.
That's fantastic, Emer. And even though you've only just embarked on it really since last August, you haven't yet finished your first year of the Executive MBA program, that already you're applying your learning. So from the academic and the theoretical learnings and the case studies that you're studying on the program, that you're already seeing how you can apply that to your organization, and then articulating it, with your direct report, or articulating it to your CEO is fantastic. And I suppose it highlights that having the language, and some knowledge does enable you to have those new conversations.
Yeah, and I think the way, obviously, the kind of focused way that Swagata is doing it, of the year intense kind of MBA, obviously has its benefits. And I suppose one of the benefits for me of the modular executive is that, because I'm still, now I know I'm on maternity leave kind of in and out, but I'm still in that loop, and I'm still able to apply things right now. So I feel like my learning is becoming very real. It's becoming realized really quickly because I'm still in the workplace. So I'm finding that really beneficial as well.
Fantastic. And I know it's early days for you, Emer, but has the MBA changed you either professionally or personally as yet? Might be too early.
I think it has, and I think it's in that way that I've much more confidence and credibility in the workplace as a result. And also, I think as a woman, as a mum, I feel a lot more confident because I feel like, yeah, there's days when you're juggling it all and it's all falling apart, but then there's days when everything's clicking and you're kind of feeling those wins and that sense of achievement, and it's being able to step back and be proud of what I'm doing and what I'm kind of managing to do. And obviously, I have 2 young girls, and just being able to show them that actually it is doable. Like, obviously they won't remember their mom sitting up writing essays in her pajamas, drinking coffee, but like that will be lost to them. It's a memory for me, but I'm laying that groundwork because that's the way that, that I'm committed to it, and I want them to be able to understand that when they grow up as well.
That's so powerful, Emer, and to be a role model for your little girls, even though they're so tiny now, and they mightn't remember those study times, but they will be attending your graduation, and hopefully your eldest daughter, anyway, she will certainly remember it because it's such a special occasion, and it's always wonderful to have entire families there as well, and wonderful for you to be a role model for your daughters. Yeah. Fantastic. And Helen, I know you shared with us, maybe, some of how the MBA changed you, both professionally, and personally, and learning a little bit more about yourself in terms of your learning style. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that in terms of, how the MBA has changed you?
Yeah, I think it's just, especially in the business world now that I've transitioned to rather than the healthcare, I think even, Stephen's lecture, I went back and did the executive postgrad in negotiation skills. There's all those courses open to you and you have completed your MBA. And I think in terms of the ability to negotiate or to strategize, that's what I find really important on a day-to-day level in my job. And that's something that the MBA has changed for the better in me, because I have the confidence and the know-how and the theory to do that, and really we're very successful in Siemens, but I think it's because we attach that business acumen to what we do and how we win deals and, tackle deals and look to further business. And, really our focus is, patient outcomes and how to get that across in the language to the customers. So the MBA has really helped, certainly in my success in my career, definitely.
That's fantastic, Helen. Thank you. And Keelan, for you, I know you've only graduated in 2020, and I suppose our first year of the pandemic. So apart from the pandemic, how did the MBA impact on you and change you?
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic experience. I think mainly I just grew in confidence so much. Even doing something like this prior to the MBA, like I would have been a nervous wreck. And I think like there was so much presentation, coaching, with Pulse Lattery at the time. I did. I tried to kind of get myself out of my comfort zone. So I signed up to do case study competitions where I knew there'd be presentations. And then after doing it a few times, you just become more and more comfortable. Obviously doing it virtually is a bit different to standing up on a stage in front of a group, but I think it just helped my confidence grow within the workplace so much, and benefited hugely from all of the modules, and kind of relaying that to my job now.
That's fantastic, Helen or Keelan, and Emer, if I can come back to you in terms of we're all dying to know how on earth do you manage to balance your professional life and life in general with your 2 toddlers and also your study. So how are you doing it?
I suppose it's kind of 2 parts to it. So look, there's the emotional side of it and the weight of that, and then there's the practical side of it. So on the emotional side, I've absolutely had to give myself a break and just say, okay, there's things you can do, there's things you're just getting done, and there's things you can do really well. And I probably would have been a bit of a perfectionist, and to be honest, having children just, ruins that. So I think there's that kind of imposter syndrome that I would have battled previously earlier in my career, and on and off. It gets to you, but I've had to become my own best friend in my head, where I just say, okay, you're doing great. You might have a pajama day where you've watched 3 hours of television and the baby's screaming, and there isn't a chance you're going to get to your laptop that day. That's okay. because the next day you could have a great day, you could go for a walk, have a coffee and get half your essay done and have a call with your study group. So I think being your own best friend and really changing that voice in your head so that you know there'll be good days and bad days, and you know that it's okay, everything's okay, you are doing your best, give yourself a break. I think that's been a game changer for me, and to really actively work on that kindness to myself. On a practical sense, if anybody offers help, I think anybody that has a baby probably knows this, people offer help, I really take it. I don't do the, oh no, it's okay. If somebody says, can I help you? I say, can you drop in dinner? Can you, take my toddler for a walk? Can you, get the dog food that I forgot to get in the vet? I do take people up on their help, and I do really kind of reach out for that as well when I need to. I've also, on a practical level, kept my toddler in creche a couple of days a week to give me time with my newborn, to give me time to do my study and to keep up with that. And I think the new modular executive MBA, I wouldn't have been able to do an MBA apart from that format. And that format really suits me because I couldn't travel to Dublin on a daily basis. I live near Drogheda, and I just knew practically I couldn't do that with young family. Whereas a lot of the class being online, you being able to do work in your own time, and really just having kind of 2.5 days really a month that you have to be in one place, really suited me and worked for me, and it gave me something to look forward to. So yeah, I think there's practical things I've had to do, and I think there's emotional things I've had to do, but very much accepting that it is a juggling act. Balls will drop, but tomorrow's another day. Just take it each day as it comes, and I'm getting through it.
Well, Emer, that is just a fantastic attitude to have. And, I think you've talked about something that many of us are probably guilty of, or it's part of our nature, is to be a perfectionist, and to want to do everything perfectly and for everything to turn out perfectly. And, I think your experience and your words of wisdom, are really helpful, that sometimes, not everything has to be perfect. And if today isn't perfect, well, maybe tomorrow will be as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you've just reminded me, when I was studying for my PhD, I had 2 little toddlers as well. So I wasn't doing an MBA, but I was doing my PhD and working full time as well. So yeah, I remember it well. But yeah, that's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And also in terms of what you talk about support, in terms of help, not only to accept the help, but also ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, and when you need help, people are more than willing to help out. So thanks so much for sharing that with us, Emer. Svagata, can I turn to you then? So you stepped out of your full-time career to do the full-time MBA program, and you moved country. So was that a difficult decision for you? And where do you see your MBA qualification taking you in the future?
Well, yeah. So last year, I think I did a couple of big decisions of my life. Like, one is to get married. Second is to change your country, and third was to leave your job and start your MBA. So yeah, it was a kind of, you get some, okay, am I doing clicking so many decisions at the same time? Is it going to work? So of course, those things, those thoughts come to your mind, but at one point you just have to trust and kind of go ahead. And for me, MBA personally, one thing I can relate so much to Keeling is that confidence bit. I don't think before MBA I would have signed up for such a panel discussion as this one. I think MBA has given me that confidence to kind of take up an opportunity when it comes and kind of go ahead and, okay, we'll figure it out when it happens, kind of an attitude, which is very useful in work as well. I think that's what I get the most from the confidence bit, to stand up in front of a group of people and talk about something, because there is a lot of presentations and a lot of projects that you have to do. So that's something that has changed me in a significant way through this MBA journey. Also, to be able to network. So this is something I have not done previously before coming to an MBA, is the importance of networking with people. This is something I have really learned through this MBA journey, is how to network, when to network, and how to get the value out of your connections. So that's something which is very important, and that's a very valuable lesson that I will carry with myself through in future also. So these are the significant changes that I can definitely see in myself.
Thank you, Swagata. And absolutely, the network is so important, and you have wonderful opportunities here at the UCD Smurf School to link in with all of our connections. Helen, can you tell us a little bit about your career trajectory since completing your MBA and moving into the business of innovation and the business of radiography in Siemens?
Yeah, can you hear me, Geraldine? It just broke there.
Yes, yeah, we can hear you, Helen. Sure.
Oh, great. Yeah, sure. So my primary degree was radiography, and then I did my postgrad in medical ultrasound. So I think as clinical people, like to do, continual professional development. So after my MBA, I had been working in Galway Clinic as a clinical development manager, and then I felt, a greater challenge may be to go into a managerial role in the HSE, which was definitely a step change for me because they operate very differently, private healthcare to public healthcare. And it was a really good taster because often things are very dynamic in private healthcare, and HSE may get, a lot of grief that they're not as dynamic, but they've a completely different profile of patient, completely different challenges. And I think that really stood to me, that I understood the culture and the bureaucracy of both systems. So then when I stepped into industry, which is something that's not very often done from a clinical perspective. You get very few clinical people in industry. And I see someone had asked a question there about imposter syndrome. And I never had imposter syndrome on the MBA, but certainly when I stepped into industry, I felt, wow, am I going to survive here? Am I going to have the skills that are required? But very soon I realized industry probably requires clinical people more so than people that are strictly just from business, because you have a complete 360 and you have far greater solutions. So I think when I joined Siemens, I joined as an account manager, and very quickly I progressed into the business, straight into the business side of it, because you could talk the talk, but you could also walk the walk. So the language you were speaking to the customers, be it the radiology departments or the wider imaging departments, right up to the C-level people. And Siemens, they're a German company, but they have a very good process in place, in a sense that I always felt supported in what I did, and it was very easy to go in and speak to the C-level about solutions that you had for them. So all in all, I just find it a very easy transition. So where I sit now is head of business for Ireland for Siemens, but it's a global medtech company. And I think when you're at that level, with the likes of Siemens, Boston, Medtronic, there's a whole network there as well that I tend to participate in, be it through conferences or I do remember the first on the MBA, they did say, one of the lecturers, Geraldine, that one of the main things we would do in our lifetime is to network. And I think as Irish people, we do that very easily. We're very sociable, and it's something that comes easy towards us. And I think I've continued to do that right through my career. And it's a wider network now as I progress. And I think it's important for everyone on the call that we should, maybe network a little bit more and support our sisterhood and, help each other out there on that front, because paths do cross throughout the years, and that's something I found more and more. So if I can be of any help to anyone, I certainly would like to do that.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Helen, for your kind offer. Absolutely. And it's about supporting each other and lifting each other up, isn't it? As we go along. Yeah, for sure. So thank you for that, Helen. And then finally, Keelan, we'll finish our panel discussion with you. You moved from the financial services sector to the technology sector, and again, another global company like Siemens, where Helen is. So how did the MBA enable this transition for you?
Yeah, of course, Geraldine. So I think prior to joining the MBA, I was working in the financial services sector. I was working as an innovation consultant, and my role was meeting large corporates and discussing with them how emerging technologies were going to impact their business and treasury models. And I found myself particularly interested in their strategies. So I thought maybe this was a good time in my career to kind of take the step, do the MBA, and then maybe pivot my career into a more strategy focused role. I think the MBA helped me to realize that just by kind of making me aware of all of the career options that were out there. I had never considered a career in tech. I thought you needed to be particularly techie or be able to code, and which I'm not. But just the career service and the MBA program office in terms of the careers aspect of that really helped me to understand the wide variety of careers in tech. And now I'm working in a business strategy role within a tech company like Amazon, and absolutely love the job, and it's exactly what I wanted, and I didn't realize that those jobs kind of existed in the tech industry, so it really helped me to realize that.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Keelan, for sharing that with us, and to all our panel members. So a huge thank you to our current students, Emer and Swagata, and a huge thank you also to our alumni, to Keelan and Helen. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure all of our attendees this evening will have learned so much from listening to you, and may have some follow-up questions as well. So I know there's lots of questions there in the Q&A, but I think in the interest of time, we might first of all turn back to Elaine, and I know Elaine is going to have a chat with Leah, who is one of our scholarship awardees. So Elaine, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Geraldine. That was a great panel discussion. Huge amounts of learning. Good evening, Leah. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for taking the time this evening to join us. Leah, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you're studying on the modular EMBA, but maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about your role and also your background.
Yeah, of course. So I just started alongside Emer this autumn in the modular program in August. I work for Square as head of our fraud operations for Europe and the UK. And I just moved to Ireland in January 2020 for this role, shortly before many lockdowns and a global pandemic. So not exactly the transition that I expected, but I think, you know, like other speakers have talked about, I think you can never plan everything, and there's never such thing as a perfect time. And I think some of the uncertainty and stress that I went through as part of that transition of being in a new country, in a new role, gave me the confidence to pursue the MBA. But prior to moving to Ireland, I am from the US originally. I had been working with Square, managing a customer success team in our St. Louis office. And prior to that, I had been in a leadership position at an education nonprofit for about 7 years. And my educational background is actually in the humanities.
Oh, yes. So you didn't actually come from a business background.
No, definitely not. And I think that's one of the things I saw a few questions about as well. I think, you know, just what is the right profile? What is the right education? What is the right experience? And I think something I've really appreciated about Smurfit and about my classmates is that there's a huge diversity of experiences. And I think that's what makes the learning even more impactful. And I think it's just evidence of the reality and the necessity of that diversity in a business setting.
And so you were the scholarship winner for her.ie, which was one of our scholarships. Would you like to tell us a little bit about, you know, the value of the scholarship first, I suppose? I don't mean the monetary value, I mean the value of the scholarship for you in helping making your decision to complete the MBA. And I suppose also, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to apply for the MBA with regard to how they would apply for a scholarship?
Yeah, so I think being able to obtain the scholarship was transformative for me. I think I was overwhelmed at I had always wanted, or for a long time had wanted to pursue an MBA, but it seemed so complex and so daunting and terrifying and unknown, and I just wasn't sure that I could do it. But I think, like I said, you know, the challenges and the reflection of the past couple of years allowed me to push myself and say, okay, let me just take this one step at a time. And I remember going to this exact webinar last year thinking, okay, well, I'll just listen to the Women on the MBA event and decide if I wanted to move forward with that. And then I'll start studying for the executive assessment and see if I want to move from in there. So I kind of just had to take it step by step. And I think, you know, having moved to Ireland and I moved here with my partner, who wasn't able to find work and began a master's program himself. And I knew just financially that there was so much uncertainty that it would be a real challenge to be able to afford the program. You know, it's definitely an investment, but unfortunately, my employer doesn't offer tuition benefits. And so while my direct manager was very supportive and was supportive of me kind of making a business case to be able to get some level of sponsorship, I just knew that it's something that they don't provide overall. And so without funding, I wasn't sure how I would make it work. So I think I was thinking about this as well with Professor Boyle's lecture about Women Don't Ask. I remember reading that book a few years ago. And I think for me, the advice or the suggestion to women on this call is, you know, if you are asking those questions around how can I make this possible financially, how can I afford it? If this seems like it's something that could be a blocker for you or could hold you back from pursuing an MBA, I think it was my way of asking and to present myself, you know, through the written reflections and through that scholarship interview process to be able to tell my story of my experience and my background. And of course, winning that scholarship then was a huge vote of confidence that I felt personally, to know that this was the right path forward for me and that I would be bringing something to the Smurf at school as well, and to that cohort.
And it's funny because you do, I mean, the three core challenges that we often see, as Geraldine mentioned at the beginning, was flexibility, affordability, and confidence. And, you know, we've addressed the flexibility, as a lot of the panelists talked about there, you know, the learnings, you know, the different options, whether it's the midweek or the modular, it's very flexible. So that flexibility, we've answered to that. And then I suppose you're talking here about the affordability. And I suppose the confidence thing is, you talked about the GMAT and the EA, and that's obviously one of the assessment exams that's required when you apply for the MBA. And the higher your GMAT or the higher your EA, the better your chances of securing a scholarship and the better your chances of securing a greater scholarship, I guess. I often find that people are afraid of the GMAT or the EA. And was it something that you felt that you were a little bit afraid of? And if you were, what would you say to people out there tonight? They're sitting where you were sitting 12 months ago around the GMAT and the EA.
Yeah, that was definitely fearful. I think that I took the executive assessment and I appreciated that that was an option. I knew that at least with it being a little bit scaled down in terms of scope and time commitment, that, you know, it was more approachable. But again, coming from a humanities background and having graduated from university 12 or 13 years ago, I thought, how am I ever going to manage these quantitative sections and how will I make time to study? But again, it's like I mentioned, I think it was just a matter of breaking things down one step at a time and kind of almost keeping my expectations low with we'll see what happens. And I think also I knew what my strengths were. I knew the sections where I would be strong. And so I had a little bit of confidence or boost from that, and it allowed me to focus in a little bit more on the areas where I felt I might be weaker. But even within those sections, I tried to use the same strengths of just, you know, I have strong reading comprehension. I can be able to think, even if I'm not totally sure about this chart or this graph, you know, what can I pick up? How can I kind of use those practical skills that I've gained throughout my career? Because there's been many times in my career where I've looked at something and said, I have no idea what this is, or I've never, you know, come across that before. And using that experience and that approach and the executive assessment served me well. And I did far better than I thought that I would. And I think that is part of what allowed me to build the confidence and to receive the scholarship that made this possible.
So I suppose your point is, you know, break it down, take one step at a time, make the application, then apply for the EA, or the GMAT, and, start practicing. We are doing tutorials every Wednesday evening now, free tutorials online. Doyle will put the link into the chat box there for people. And it is a matter of just, I suppose, keeping at it, Leah, really, isn't it? It's kind of a practice and building your own confidence around the verbal or the quant questions.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I attended a few of those sessions last year, and then of course did the prep materials online and everything. And those do make it easy to give you some structure and track your progress over time. So there's tools out there, and I would recommend using those to help build your confidence.
I suppose one other question, just around time commitment, because often people, that's another barrier that people sometimes talk about. You know, is there, you're currently doing the modular. How are you finding the time commitment per week? Like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's intense. It's very intense. I think the modular is also what helped make this possible for me, just given my work schedule. I knew that, you know, having every, you know, 2 nights a week in the evenings after a day of work might be very difficult. I sometimes have meetings later in the evening, and those could create conflicts. So the predictability of knowing, you know, each Friday and Saturday that I have class helps me adjust my time. And I think for some of my classmates, I know they're very diligent about, you know, I spend 1 or 2 hours every day working on school. For me, I need to be a little bit more flexible and say, I've got this deadline coming up this week, so I won't be able to work during the week, but I'm going to spend, you know, 3 or 4 hours on Saturday and 3 or 4 hours on Sunday, and kind of block that out so that it fits in around my life. But I do think that it's important to know that it is a very, very serious commitment, and it takes up a lot of time. But I think also, like Emer said, you have to figure out where you can really excel, and where you need to prioritize, and where you need to balance and get some stuff done. And I think that all of the professors have been very clear and supportive around, this is the specific time estimate for this class. This is, you know, all of your deadlines for the semester, so that you can map it out, and then you can kind of coordinate with your peers in your study group to make sure you're working ahead and that there aren't any surprises over the course of the semester.
Yeah, thank you very much for this evening. We're going to move on to the questions and answers. I had one slide just around the numbers, because we have a lot of different scholarships available, as you can see there. Some are specifically targeted at females, but females can apply for the scholarships that are both, and they're actually on our website, and the scholarships that are open. So there's quite a number of them there. And then there's just a couple of links there, so you can either email myself or email mba@ucd.ie. And then also we have along the website a lot of different events coming up. So please check the website. And as I mentioned about the GMAT EA virtual prep sessions, the tutorials, they're on every Wednesday from now till the end of May. So you can get on those, and they're for free. So I'll stop sharing with that, and I'll move on to the questions and answers. Adele.
Super, thank you so much, Elaine. That was great. And yeah, it has been questions flowing in here. So I'm going to do my best in the last few minutes that we have, just to see if I can cover them all. There is one very practical question, and Leah and Swagata and Emer, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually put it to the three of you, which is about the time commitment. So Leah, I know you've touched on it there a bit on the modular program, but Emer, people are asking, can you give a little more information about what is the time commitment on the modular side of the house, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so to be honest, I probably went into it thinking it was less than it was. So just straight off the bat. But I very quickly kind of got into a routine of it. So essentially there's a couple, whenever you kick off, so in August, there's 4 days on campus. But after that, it's 2 days a month on campus. So Friday and the Saturday together. And then there's a half day online class as well. Yeah. So basically every month there's a half day online class and a weekend. And then you would meet your study group on different evenings or weekends, whenever works for you guys. We work in small groups, and everything else is kind of reading in your own time, learning in your own time, and then working with your group on group work. So there's flexibility in that. And then it's, look, how long is a piece of string? It depends on what you want to put into it and what you're able to put into it, to get the most out of it, you know, outside of that.
Great, thank you for that. Swagata, tell us about the full-time program. And I know this does vary from trimester to trimester, but on average, in terms of being in actual lectures or workshops during the day and into the evening, what would you estimate for people, just to give them a feel for the program?
Hi, sorry. Yeah, so for full time, I think it depends from semester to semester. Yeah. So the first semester is kind of much more intense in terms of the course load. which is, as you go to the second and the third semester, the load decreases. So for this semester, I'm in the second semester, so we have classes on almost 3 days a week, and which is divided in different, sometimes in the first half or the second half. So it depends on the semester, and I think it's the first semester, it's kind of a struggle, but by the time you reach second semester, you kind of get used to the flow, and it's much more easier to manage the time.
Yeah. And just to explain to people then, the midweek program, how it differs is that you come 2 evenings a week to us. And that is for the full program, year 1 and year 2, done over 2 evenings. And what we do is we keep very much to the 2 evenings, and we try to minimize the disruption to the weekends or any other time off, so that you can keep up your work commitments and your family commitments. So those are the 3 different programs. And I think I posted a link into the chat earlier that there is a very good tool on our website, which is an Mba Comparison Tool, and it actually goes through the detail of the different formats and the different expectations around the 3 programs. So the other question that's been asked by a couple of people is that obviously we've spoken a lot about the highlights, and people are also keen to know really what are the challenges. And I'm guessing they're probably thinking, are the challenges, academic challenges, or is it about life balance challenges? So if I could, who shall I ask that question to? Maybe Leah, would you answer that? What has been some of the challenges you've experienced so far, and tell us what you think?
Yeah, I think for me, I would say it is just a matter of balance. I think, I've heard different philosophies and approaches that individuals have taken about, obviously I need to put my full effort into my work, and they pay me every month, and I want to continue advancing my career there and not neglect my job at the expense of my education. And at the same time, my MBA is an investment in my future long-term, regardless of where I go in my career. And my family is important to me, and my in-laws are staying with me right now. And I need to exercise sometimes and eat healthy food and all those things. And I think, and it can feel like those things are at the expense of one another. I do think that, I think honestly, one of the best ways that I've worked through that is through the conversations and support of those peer groups that we work so closely with. I think those can have their own set of challenges and difficulties and stresses, but I think that is where a lot of the learning happens, and you get to kind of see different people's approaches and hear what they're doing in their day-to-day lives and how they're managing it, and kind of share best practices too. So it's both, a challenge and a strategy for how you work through that.
Great. Thank you so much, Leah. Now, the next question, I'm actually going to answer it myself, if that's okay. So I have somebody who's asking about our Genome Network. So just to explain a little about the Genome is a global network of business schools that we're part of. We're the only business school in Ireland to be part of it. And it's a unique opportunity, as Geraldine said at the very top of the webinar, to get some international experience. So maybe in your role, you haven't had an opportunity yet to either work globally or to experience, working on a global project. And what Genome does is it's part of our curriculum, and there's 2 opportunities to actually study with Genome. One is a formal week, which is called a Global Network Immersion Week. And again, if you go to our website, click on any of the MBA options, be it full-time, midweek or modular, and go to the curriculum tab, you'll see where Genome plays in on each of the 3 different programs. It doesn't happen in the same week for all the MBA programs. It happens in different weeks of the year. But there's a full week where you have an opportunity to pick from a wide variety of business schools globally and to attend a program there. And the topics can be wide and varied. And now, obviously, in the last couple of years, they've been conducted in a virtual format. But hopefully they will be getting back to actual live interaction soon. Although it has been a learning for them that the virtual world does actually work very well. So you have a choice of maybe studying at Yale, or you could study at one of the European business schools. And then as a second opportunity to partake in that, they also offer what are called short network online courses, where you can opt in on your own choice to actually attend a program virtually in one of the business schools, which is the Global Network. And as I said, there's probably about, I think at this stage, maybe 32 different business schools that you can participate in. And what our students have found to date is that they get great exposure there to, again, kind of global projects, global thinking, and of course, expanding their network to meet other MBAs globally, and keeping up those relationships and just understanding how other MBAs are, what ideas they have in terms of what they're working on, but also as well how they are approaching their job search. Now, that is probably the next question that's most frequently been asked this evening, is how do we connect the job search, your ambition around your careers, with then the careers network here in the school. So as Geraldine said, there is a dedicated MBA careers manager who you will meet very early days. If you're a full-time MBA and the program runs concurrently with the academic program, where you're brought through a series of professional workshops to actually help you build your CV, to understand your career path, to be introduced to employers in the Irish marketplace, and so on and so forth. On the executive side of the house, it tends to happen in year 2 and is very much driven at your own pace. So most executive MBAs who are with us obviously are full-time employed in their own, with their own employers, and they will maybe make a decision to engage with the career service maybe a little down the line, or indeed maybe after their formal MBA program has finished, and that is always open to them as an option. They can come back and be part of that network up to 1 to 2 years later. And that's where we also play in the Alumni Connection, which is another question that's been asked this evening. So as part of your formal career program, you will get an opportunity to be introduced to an alumni mentor. So that is somebody that we will help you identify based on the career you're currently either in or the career you aspire to have. We will find an alumni within our network. We will ask them to mentor you, and you will meet them as at your own pace and as at their work pace. So at the moment, our full-time MBAs have all met their career mentors, their alumni mentors, and they're helping them to make introductions, to expand their networks, and to talk to them, I think, more practically about the types of roles and opportunities that there are in the Irish marketplace at the moment. So I hope I've got to quite a number of the questions there. As I said, if there are questions that we actually haven't answered this evening, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Elaine, or email mba@ucd.ie, and we will do our absolute best to get back to you. I'd like to call back everybody now to say thank you. And we have thoroughly enjoyed having your company here this evening. I'll hand back to you, Geraldine, if there's anything else you'd like to say to our panelists or to our participants this evening. But hopefully you will get in contact with us, and hopefully they will reach out soon.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Edel, for endeavouring to answer so many questions in such a short space of time. But obviously, we're always here if anybody has any further questions to ask of us. So suffice it to say, a huge thank you to everybody for being with us this evening, our attendees, and most importantly to our panel members, to our current students, to Emer, to Swagata, and to Leah as our Scholar Awardee, and also to our alum, to Helen and to Keelan. We really appreciate the time that you've taken to be with us and to share your experience with prospective students. And we hope that our prospective students will have decided, based on some of our panel members' experience, to not wait. And there's no time like the present, and is always a good time to start an MBA and pursue your Mba degree. So a huge huge thank you, and a huge thank you to my colleagues, to Kathy, who organised everything as well, to Elena and Adele for being with us this evening as well, and for fielding the questions, and also then behind the scenes with a beautiful picture of the UCD Smurf School, Paul, who is always beavering away to make sure that the technology works smoothly for us. So Paul, a huge thank you to you as well. So, so good night everyone, safe home, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.